So, for those that don't know, I work at a government contractor. We build battleships for the Navy. Well, my time here has taught me that there are certain things that are apparently not as common knowledge as I would have thought. As a big bureaucratic business, they pay a lot of attention to the cost of change. They'll look at a problem and ask how much will it take to fix it? Can we afford to fix it? And the answer is pretty much always no. At first glance, it may seem like a reasonable way of thinking, but it can often lead to more damage than good. In programming, there's this thing called the escalating cost principle. It basically states that the longer a bug is in the code, the more expensive it'll be to fix. The easiest way to explain it is imagine a giant game of Jenga. When you put a block on top of the tower, it's not supporting anything. So if you need to change it, you can rotate it around, you can twist it, you can keep rearranging it without it affecting anything else. But as the game continues, more blocks are going to be put on top of that. These pieces are going to be built on top of the existing processes. Over time, this block becomes an integral part of the structure. Now, if we needed to go back and move that first block, it has a bunch of other things that it's supporting. Every time we try to move that, we might break all of the other blocks it's encountering. The earlier we find the issue, the earlier we fix it, the less else that we can break with a little change. The escalating cost principle isn't limited to programming. It relates to almost everything in life. The choices you make today will influence the cost of the choices you can make tomorrow. Let's say you built a set of rules for a new card game. You've designed a few dozen cards, you've balanced them, and then you decide, you know what, let's create some more cards, and you balance them too. But then you run into an issue where you realize a core rule is working against you. It's not working the way you intended. And this raises the question, how expensive will it be to fix it? If you found it and you'd only designed 50 cards, it's a relatively cheap fix to rebalance everything that needs to be done. But what if you had 500? Every single card that you designed in the past is going to increase the cost of fixing it now. And this is why I preach so strongly about the small scale prototypes. By putting these on the table and playing the game, you can actually discover these issues earlier on. And because it's a small scale prototype, it's cheap and easy to fix. In fact, for the Cards of Cthulhu expansion, months were spent using only the cards in the base game to test out both the scenario and the cult power concepts. I knew that people liked the base game, and the tests were meant purely to prove how these rules would impact the experience. It wasn't until after these concepts had been proven that I'd added the investigation cards and the new cult and all the additional cards. But there's a second half to how the choices you make today can influence the cost of tomorrow. It doesn't just make things more expensive in the future, you can actually make them cheaper. Look at the Unity engine, the Unreal engine, even RPG Maker. Developers are creating exponentially more powerful games with a fraction of the resources each and every day. What used to take a full team, it's being done by one guy now. A strong toolset is an expensive upfront investment, and the costs often scare people away. For a good tool set, it can often take as much time to build a tool as it does to create a full game. I'm not exaggerating, tools are expensive as hell. But even cutting a 1-minute task to 30 seconds is a 50% savings. Every single time you perform that task for the remainder of development, you're saving 50% of the time. Whether it's once per enemy in the game, once per text box, or once per card, these savings can add up quickly. Even for small and simple tasks, a strong toolset can pay itself off 100 times over. But in reality, there are no set of rules. There are no straightforward guidelines of when you need a tool and when the cost is too high. It's just something that you want to keep in mind when you're making your decisions. How will this impact the development in the future? Is this feature ready to be built on? Or should I hold off? Am I going to be performing this task enough time that a tool will actually save me money? You always want to ask the question, not what is the cost, but what is the cost and what is the effect of my choice on future costs? Because eventually, all of those corners you cut, all of those shortcuts you're taking, they're going to drive your costs up to dangerous levels. At that point, no amount of working harder is going to save you or your project.